Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this panel, which is about deal-making in the region, which is about the exit mechanisms for investments in Middle East and North Africa. In fact, I'm very happy to have the opportunity to moderate this discussion because I think that this region, and despite the nearly continuous turmoil in many parts of its countries, and despite the many challenges for doing business in many Middle Eastern markets, this region is still one of the most attractive spots for investment around the globe. Whether we're talking about the GCC model, which offers a mix of stability, advanced infrastructure, huge public spending, or whether we're talking about other markets in Middle East and North Africa, which don't enjoy the same, I think that's better, which don't enjoy the same level of stability and security and infrastructure, but offer huge potential for growth in terms of demography, in terms of young population, in terms of increasing consumption. So today we're going to focus on exit mechanisms for investments, on initial public offerings, IPOs, because this is a very important factor in attracting investments to the region. Having a way to cash out, to realize profits, makes a startup or a promising family business an attractive opportunity for private equity funds or venture capital investors, which in turn helps also foster entrepreneurship and grow the small and medium-sized enterprises, something we badly need in this region to create the millions of jobs that the region requires in the next few years. I would like to welcome our speakers in this panel, Mrs. Mona Dafrawi, who's the founder and managing partner at IPO Quest. Mona has extensive experience in fundraising, initial public offerings, and investor relations for over 20 years. She has inspired a lot of people in this business. In fact, in the morning, I was just checking an article with Mona where she was named one of Egypt's kicking butts abroad. I would like to welcome Mona. Thank you. I would also like to welcome Mr. Imad Ghandour, who is the co-founder and managing director at Cedar Bridge, which focuses on investing in growth companies in Middle East and North Africa. Imad has more than 10 years of experience in private equity investments throughout the Middle East and China, and he is a co-founder of the MENA Private Equity Association. Imad, please. We are very happy to have you both with us.
Thank you.
For years, I would say, private equity funds have raised billions of dollars from Middle Eastern investors to invest them abroad. Today, there's some change. Today, we see private equity funds and investors interested in investing in our region. At the time, we see maybe some slowdown in private equity activity in some developed markets. Reports are indicating more than 40% decrease in private equity deals in 2014 in Europe, and probably a much higher decrease in the US. So, Imad, if I may start with you, what is making investment in the region of more interest to international investors, in particular private equity funds today?
I mean, in a way, they rediscovered that this region, especially the GCC countries, are relatively stable. Our currency has always been pegged to the dollars, and they will not suffer what they suffered in India and other places. And, whatever the political situation is, we either grow or grow faster. We haven't seen a recession in the GCC, I cannot recall, at least in my career, I've seen a recession of maybe in the early 90s. But since then, it's been growing year on year, sometimes fast, sometimes faster. So they discovered it's a great recipe for success.
Mona, you're an expert, I would say, when it comes to IPOs, to initial public offerings. IPO activity has fueled worldwide, not only in the region in the past few years, but in particular in the region, and especially in the GCC. This year we have seen many IPOs. We have seen a giant one this month in Saudi Arabia, 25% floating of National Commercial Bank for $6 billion. We've seen Emaar Malls in the third quarter also with an IPO in Dubai. All of these were oversubscribed. So again, what's driving this momentum in IPOs in the region?
Yeah, so I think that IPOs in the region follow the US IPO market. It leads the world. And it has been blocked for a long time. So when the internet bubble crashed in 2001, it really took the entire US economy with it, as we saw. And no matter what the US government has tried, pumping a lot of money into real estate and banking, nothing has worked until IPOs start coming out again. And the reason behind that is that 92% of job growth happens after IPOs. And so it's inevitable. We're in the knowledge economy. We're not going backwards to the industrial economy or the agricultural economy. So IPOs will continue to succeed no matter the roadblocks you put ahead of them. So having said that, there's been very few from 2001 through about the last year or two. There was a little bubble, of good IPOs again around 2007 in the U.S. markets, and then the 2008 crash made those go away also. I don't think people really understand IPOs very well. That's a big part of my mission, is to take away the mystery. They're really no different from a private equity deal. It's a financial opportunity for public and smaller investors to participate in great companies like very strong banks that have been around for a long time. And it's an opportunity also for, what really defines an IPO is high growth, high momentum, the ability to scale globally or at least, to scale nationally in a very large way to create a significant size company. So I think we're seeing companies that have grown to that size here locally that are going public. And we've also seen, support in the U.S. and global market. And remember, Alibaba, the largest IPO in history, just happened recently, $25 billion raised, not a U.S. company. IPOs can come from anywhere. And I'm delighted to see, really unique companies growing here in the region now. I'm told just in even the last year and a half, like entrepreneurial companies, has been a hockey stick of increase. So in about 5 to 7 years, you should be seeing a lot of technology-based IPOs now maturing and ready.
Okay, so Mona, we're going to talk more about this potential, let's call it, in the region. Imad, what has differed today in terms of probably investor sophistication, in terms of the role banks play in such deals? Do we expect to go back to the same levels as the pre-crisis levels in the same way, or it's different? The whole formula is different today.
I mean, what's similar is that really, investors haven't developed the sophistication you expect after going through, two setbacks in 07 here, 06, 07, and then in 08 globally. I think we continue to follow the herd mentality to a large extent. And what we've seen is that oversubscription is a sentiment of it. I believe, for example, when I look at venture capital funds trying to raise $10, $20 million and not succeeding, okay, and then I look at an oversubscribed NCB IPO or, all these, it's obvious that, the opportunity is in venture capital and not in a pretty much extremely stable, no growth industry like banking, which is actually under a lot of scrutiny and regulation. So I don't know why people still go there and not here at this point.
Maybe it's something with our culture, with the way we perceive investments. These investments in the region have been known to give probably the biggest security over the years. Stuff there are tangible when you talk about real estate, when you talk about banks, so it's something tangible. Do we need time to change this investment mentality that we have? What is needed? Is there anything in the regulation, anything in the way business is done to change the way we look at opportunities?
I really don't know what can be done, frankly. But yeah, I mean, the biggest fact that you cannot avoid is that, we're getting digital. So, all these VCs and tech funds that are going and investing in the digital space are investing probably in the most stable, obvious opportunities that are really in your face. And, we don't know banks will stay in the same size they are, frankly. I think they are more threatened, okay? Look what happened to all the big banks globally. Then, what's in your face, the small startup that will have only the way to grow. I mean, so anyways, I'm a bit contrarian, but this is how I feel.
When I want to comment on this as well.
Yes, I think the internet bubble crash scared a lot of people. There were a lot of companies that were going public. I actually was vice president of corporate development of one, the first cloud company, U.S. Internet Working, from employee number 30 to $4 billion IPO in 18 months. It was crazy. And I had to leave because I knew it was crazy and I couldn't be a part of it. But it had no business doing that. It was also bankrupt in 18 months, and I couldn't be part of selling, stock to people that I knew. But the whole industry got caught up in that. So many companies, but there were many good ones. Amazon dropped to $1 a share, and people said, "Oh, look, that's a bad company too. It's not real." Well, look at Amazon today. Google went public in 2004. One of the worst IPOs, the Dutch auction that nobody liked. Nobody in the banking industry liked. But look at Google today, second most valuable company in the world, after Apple. So a lot of it is perception. My background is actually in perceptual psychology, which plays a very large role in investment banking on Wall Street, and especially with IPOs. But the trick is to get perception to match reality. So today what's happening, companies used to go public in 3 to 5 years, and the venture industry is based on that. 7-year funds, based on 3 to 5 year exits. So when you have a 10 to 12 year exits, the industry has been seriously dislocated. So today what's happening is these companies are 10 to 12 years old. They have to have at least 100 million in revenues with massive growth potential. They have to be around $1 billion of market cap, maybe slightly less in healthcare. So these are very solid companies, and most of their growth, 90%, is still yet to come. But you'll find that the way the markets are rigged today, the IPO markets, if you buy at IPO, you're not going to make your money there. Prince Al Walid and Kingdom Holdings bought 300 million in Twitter in November 2011. It was worth 900 million November 2013. And since then, it's about 900 million still. There was a little hiccup in between, a pop and drop. So you're not going to make your money really buying at IPO. The opportunity is in the dislocation of the venture industry, that 5 to 10 year gap, where the companies are still very strong, and there's great opportunity like Kingdom Holdings found.
We're getting some questions here from our audience. I think this is very interesting. The region is characterized by large family enterprises. What top changes or recommendations does the panel want to see these companies do to attract themselves to exits or co-shareholders? I think this is a very important topic, in fact. Family businesses are the essence of business in this region. Whether we're talking about big conglomerates, whether we're talking about promising startups, most of the times they are family denominated. These are the people who don't want to lose control of their businesses. They want a partner to co-grow the company together. So is there a specific model which works better in this region? Imad, what do you think?
Ford was a family business too, right? Or Hewlett-Packard. So, there is an evolution in the economy that I think now we're probably, a few decades behind the U.S. in that evolution curve. And some family businesses will survive because they will focus and move from that conglomerate, have it all, do it all kind of setup to actually a more focused and a global role instead of being a very strictly national role. And we've seen some businesses doing that. Generally speaking, I think most businesses remain very broad and really without that focus when you talk about big family businesses. And I don't think at this point, they are ready to invest. Maybe at a subsidiary level they might be ready, but not at the holdco level. They retain that independence to do a lot of things under the same roof. So.
Also, one probably of the audience is saying, is the Habtoor Leighton construction a good example of family enterprises evolving? Why haven't there been more examples?
Well, I think there's a lot of culture and personality and that I'm seeing, and it exists everywhere in every culture, but here, like you mentioned, people like more concrete investments. They like private equity. They can see a building and feel and touch a building, whereas software and media, it's not as tangible. Also, there's a lot of need for control, not wanting to take too much risk. These are all they work against entrepreneurship. So what you found in the U.S. industry, venture capital is risk capital. Here, oftentimes, investors will say, well, we want 51%, we want to control your board. It's all about control and fear of loss. In the process of doing that, you choke the opportunity to grow. Whereas with most venture capitalists, they'll take a minority position. You want to keep your entrepreneurs very, very motivated and also making most of their financial reward at the end, so that carrot at the end of the stick. So investors here aren't benefiting from the advantages of financial leverage to expand because, of course, there is some risk associated with that, but no risk, no reward. It's a matter of having managed risk and understanding it. So that comes over experience. But hopefully, we can share our experience in Silicon Valley and take our 40 years and help you reduce it to 20 years. A couple of other things I want to mention. Some of the regulations here, the inheritance laws, in family businesses might be prohibitive. I know bankruptcy laws are extremely, onerous to young startups. So most of the companies I see in the region that have IPO potential, I've met a few and I'm advising one, they base offshore. And so I think there's some missed opportunities that we could definitely increase the efficiency and grow tremendous value if we just, tweaked a couple of structural areas and changed some of our perceptions with it.
Mona, in particular for smaller scale companies, how is it easy today to structure an IPO in the region? In addition to the challenges you just mentioned, of course, but the process itself, how easy is it to be structured in MENA?
Most of the companies that I'm seeing, again, are structuring as an offshore company in order to do this. Again, with an 85% expatriate population, a lot of the entrepreneurs, naturally 85% of them, if we just stay true, would be expats. So the companies are also, structured as corporations outside of here, which is fine. The most important thing to understand about IPOs is that really the best companies are the ones that can grow and scale. So, if you look at global brands, so I have a slide, actually, maybe we can show it, because a picture is worth 1,000 words, to show like some of the global brands today. So I don't know, Ramsey, if you can show, here we go. So this is really how, this is the U.S. economy's economic growth factory, basically, to simplify. So less than 0.2% of U.S. GDP is represented by annual venture investment, and yet the revenues of venture-backed companies represent about 21% of U.S. GDP. So this is the most capital-efficient way to have economic growth, and it is to invest in innovation economy companies that have the ability to scale and grow globally into large brands. So for a smaller company structuring here, you can see that, all of these were small IPOs back in the 80s and some in the 90s. You can't do a small IPO anymore in the U.S. We burned that bridge when a lot of people lost their money with abuses with the internet bubble. So I think we can slowly build trust again. That's what I've been missioned to do and exclusively working on for the last 6 years in Silicon Valley. So there is opportunity for smaller companies. You don't necessarily have to be the global brand to do it. So maybe in 5 years that'll be more possible. But what's important is to really look at yourself and say, okay, we're all small companies when we start out, but are we going to grow up to be, sheep size, or are we going to be elephant size? And the IPOs are obviously the elephants, but there hopefully may be more opportunities scaling down as well, moving forward.
Imad, in terms of private equity deals, in terms of interest of investors in the region, of course now the risk appetite is there, the confidence levels are better, but there are still challenges to exit. So what tops the list, your list, or the list of challenges here in the region when it comes to exit mechanisms from investments?
Frankly, we've seen an improvement. First, the UAE IPO market has opened up. There hasn't been an PE-backed IPO yet in UAE, but there has been in Saudi and in other places. So that's becoming more and more a realistic option. Also in London, there were like a few this year and last year also that opened that option, which was theoretical but never tested. And also trade sales have been quite often. We've exited in the past 3 years 2 companies so far, and to trade buyers. So it's not that difficult as it was before. The main obstacle, frankly, is that, if you open up to the global investors, you will have a better exit environment. Because if we just get restricted by local families, local investors, IPO from the region, you're pretty limited. But if you are building a chain of nurseries like we're doing, and the buyers can be from the US, UK, Australia, then you have a much bigger audience to talk to, and definitely you do better because there'll be some pricing tension in the process. So we need to open up. We need to open local economies. We need to find a way to remove foreign ownership restrictions on the stock market, like Saudi is now trying to do, and also on the private side as well.
I think we see some improvements on this level, especially opening up markets to foreign investors. Saudi was for long out of reach, and now we expect in 2015 the market, at least a part of the market and the stocks listed there, to be open to institutional investors from abroad. Mona, if you want to say the benefits of such deals to the region, to the markets here, what does it mean if we keep this momentum, if this momentum increases in terms of whether private equity deals or IPO activity in the region? What does it mean for the economies in the region?
Well, this is how you fuel and grow an economy. M&As are wonderful for creating liquidity. Entrepreneurs, founders of the companies can go on to become serial entrepreneurs. They can finance, larger enterprises. They can finance other entrepreneurs to continue and grow companies. So there's a multiplier effect. But remember, M&As are usually job reduction events at some point. You don't need 2 CEOs and 2 CFOs. Whereas IPOs begin to create their job growth at IPO. 92% of job growth happens post-IPO in the U.S. economy. They've measured this over 40 years, and it's been consistent. And so with our study that we did last year, we showed over 150 companies that by pre-bubble standards would have all been public. And we measured over 5 million jobs that were basically hidden and waiting in embryonic form that, couldn't be supplied. So this is really where the American economy has gone for the last, 10, 13 years. It's been blocked in the IPOs that can't come out of this factory, this conveyor belt. So both create great opportunities, obviously, but the multiplier effect on IPOs is huge. And so, the UAE is, to me, the most visionary leadership on this planet. I wish we had some more of this in the US. We could use it. And it's very focused on creating growth here and, identified 7 major industries. But I still, the word IPO is missing from the plan. Let's identify those companies that can scale to IPO level within each of those industries, and then automatically your economic growth is going to come out of that. Your serial entrepreneurs are going to come out of that. The employment, the jobs, and the innovation economy. It'll all come automatically.
I mean, if you allow me, really what's missing, which is different than the US, the regulations are prohibitive in actually financing such growing businesses. When you are regulated by, the valuation is regulated by ASCA and others, and when you're regulated with the 45-55% split between old shareholders and new shareholders, and, all these are prohibitive in actually enticing potential companies to go public, at least in the local market. So there should be a mechanism to recognize that tech companies, growing companies, potential companies have to have a different track than a real estate business.
Sure. I think also this is one of the main problems that we always get when we speak to any entrepreneurs or any owner of a small, medium-sized enterprise. So lack of financing, how can I grow, the regulations, how can I compete with large players, with large conglomerates, in terms of financing in particular. So financing, especially of SMEs and helping small, medium-sized enterprises, probably by more relaxed regulations, by certain funds or banks who are willing to take this risk, is again, I think, something important. One of the good questions I've got here is, I think you answered partly this, but if you want to mention any other sectors in particular, someone is asking which sectors will drive the next wave of regional IPOs and exits?
It's difficult to, which sectors, now, everybody echoes two words, education and healthcare. You go everywhere.
Yeah, suddenly
Saudi,
there was a boom
Dubai,
in the
Abu Dhabi, it's all the same two words. But this is the time when you think of something else. So I think, I don't know what the next wave of sectors, but in the foreseeable future, you're seeing real estate investment companies, consumer-related sectors as drivers, because there is a lot of money trying to chase these sectors.
Let's talk a little bit about other countries in Middle East and North Africa, not only the GCC. The GCC model is really unique and probably much more optimistic, but there is also potential in other markets. We're talking about North Africa, Egypt, probably Morocco, Tunisia, other markets in the Middle East. What's the outlook, you think, Muna? Can we talk of healthy IPOs in these markets in the foreseeable future?
Yeah, I believe so. I just came back from Cairo a few weeks ago, and I hadn't been there in 8 years, and it was shocking for me to see how much the country had declined. But, my belief is when you're at rock bottom, there's nowhere left to go but up. And I love how Abu Dhabi has committed $82 billion to the Egyptian economy in investment over the next 10 years. So what you have there, you look at how India and China have grown, they've been the leaders because there's infinite demand amongst a very huge population. Well, Cairo mimics that, in all of Egypt. There's so much opportunity in education and healthcare, but also in every area. So I can definitely, see, and remember, Alexandria, Egypt was the original Silicon Valley. That was the Library of Alexandria. The Romans and the Greeks, came here to get the technology. That was the technology center of the world. And as the world has evolved, it went to, Constantinople, and then London, New York, and now Silicon Valley is kind of the epicenter of the next economic evolution, which is, the knowledge economy, but with the right regulation, tweaking to, if you know the destination that you want to get to, that's the toughest thing. So we know that here. It's just a roadmap. So you know that there's regulations that are roadblocks along the way, then it's easy then to study it and find the best way to overcome that. And you can grow this anywhere and everywhere. So I think it's unique that we have such emerging populations here and nearby, and also some of the greatest financial assets in the world with very visionary leadership willing to invest them properly as we have seen. So I see great things here, and there's no reason why, I'm here to build the bridge between UAE and Silicon Valley. I think it's a natural. And Silicon Valley needs you. The US economy needs, this support, so we can create a direct channel. And I'd love to see that happen.
Imad, do you have a final note? I would like to spare the last few minutes for any additional questions.
No, go ahead.
We're out of time, as usual. These topics, the time assigned is never enough for these topics. But in case any of you has a direct question to the panelists, we'd like to spare the last few minutes for any comment or any question.
Can I add just,
Sure.
what's missing pretty much is media IPOs, old or new media, but, we're talking about the media summit. And the media sector generally, whether on the private equity side or on the IPO side, has been missing. Whereas it's a very big chunk of private equity deals or IPO deals in the US. It's a significant, actually, chunk because it's scalable, and everything. But here in the region, I don't think we've really fine-tuned the right model that make media businesses go whether private or public.
Yes, sir, please go ahead.
I think we have to put at least one question.
By the way, we got a lot of questions here, and I asked most of them, but in case someone wants to address them with a direct question.
I would like to put some flavors, for our discussion. It is a political flavor. They are talking.
It has to do with the politics.
Don't worry.
Don't
worry. Don't worry. Just when you hear politics, no. We pass through different world orders through the last 100 years. And now there is some kind of gossip, introduced by some writers that, the new world order will be the IT world order. And the future of power will be directed to the companies, IT companies. We will not find, the superpower like America or whatever, and the superpower will be these companies. Maybe we add to it also the money, which will be, we will be participating in it. What do you think about it, and what do you forecast about it? Thank you.
I'll have something to say. So Wael Ghonim, the young man, the Google employee in Egypt who helped organize the revolution, wrote a great book. I love the title, which is "The Power of the People is Greater Than the People in Power." So I love how the Egyptian people, finally 20 years of oppression, but they stood up and said, and they were peacefully demonstrating. The police may not have been peaceful, but in 18 days they took down the government. And then when they made a mistake and they realized it, and voting for the next government, they admitted, they were big people and admitted they had a mistake, and they took it down again, and they've suffered a lot for all of this. But so I think a lot of these tech companies, what they've done is they've put a lot of power in the hands of the people, because we can communicate directly now. A lot of media isn't necessarily coming from the networks, but it's, bloggers can blog and develop huge followings and create a voice very easily. So we have voices now that can be heard. So I do agree with you that the large corporations have a lot of power. We see that now with, Google and and others. And so, Google has a motto of don't do evil. I do see a lot of very high values, especially from the younger generation that, I helped raise 3 of them, and, they have very high values, so we have to trust them. But it's true, the power really is in the hands of the people, and we're seeing that. So we need to, to manage this well moving forward. But what I'm seeing here in the visionary government of this region is that you're investing towards, absolutely being at the top and being the best, and supporting the growth of the power of your people here, the creators, the entrepreneurs, the opportunities, and giving the best to your people. So the power will follow that. it's really about being a visionary in the top sense. So I expect to see great things here. So I expect to see UAE rise on a global scale. Not only is that the vision, but you're putting your money and your mouth and your feet, you're walking the talk. So I expect you'll be very successful with that.
Good closing remarks.
That's why I'm here. I mean, this wasn't part of my plan. It just sort of happened this year, and I've been here 5 weeks this time. So, and we're hopefully building an office here next year. So I'm here because the power is here. It's growing. Thank you for that question.
I think it's a very positive way to end this discussion. I would like to add also that in this region, it's all about the young people. It's all about youth. They will drive the change. They will lead to the better future, whether in business or in politics or in anything else. So this is why when we talk about investments, relaxing regulations, having a more welcoming environment, we talk about fostering entrepreneurship, helping these young people find jobs and create the growth of the future. So I would like to thank our panelists, Imad Ghandour, Mona Dafraoui. It was a pleasure. Thank you for sharing with us your knowledge and expertise. I would like to thank the audience for being such a wonderful audience. I hope to see you all again soon. The UAE is always the best place to gather us. Thank you.
شكرا